Today I'm going to show you how to fold 8 different fabric cuts to the same size for easy storage. Let's start by folding a fat quarter. I've got a fat quarter right sides down on my work surface with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to take this top raw edge and fold it down to meet the selvage. Then I'm going to fold the selvage up to meet this fold we just made. Now I'm going to fold it in half across once and fold it in half across one more time. And there we go. Now we have 3 nice neat edges, a nice edge to display, and all of our raw edges are tucked at the back. Now let's fold a half yard cut. I've got my half yard cut on my work surface with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory folded edge and bringing it down to meet the selvage. Then I'm going to take the selvage and fold it up towards that fold we just made. And now I'm going to fold it in half across once and twice. There we go. We've got our 3 neat edges. Raw edges are tucked in at the back. Great edge for display. And it's the same size as our fat quarter. Now let's fold a 1 yard cut. I've got 1 yard cut on my work surface with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory fold and folding it down to the selvage. Then I'm going to fold the selvage up to meet that fold we just made. And now I'm going to start folding it across. Fold it once, fold it across again, and fold it across one more time. Now let's fold a 1/4 yard cut. I've got my 1/4 yard cut on my work surface with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory fold and bringing it down to meet the selvage. Then I'm going to fold the selvage up to this fold we just made. And now I'm going to fold it in half across once. Now let's fold a 1/3 yard cut. And I would fold a 1/3 yard cut similar to any other yardage cut between a 1/4 yard and a half yard. So I've got my 1/3 yard cut down on my work surface. I've got the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory fold and bringing it down to meet the selvage. Then I'm going to fold this up to meet that fold we just made. Now, instead of just folding it in half, which would work, I'm going to get a really small piece if I do that. I'm going to fold this into 1/3. So I'm going to just eyeball it. So now I'm pretty close to the right size, but another thing that we can do is bring in a fat quarter or a half yard that we've already folded and use that as a guide. So I've kind of got this centered, this fat quarter centered along my 1/3 yard, and now I can just fold right up to those edges, and that way it's going to be the same size as my fat quarter. The other thing you can do is use your markings on your cutting mat. This is about 4.5 inches, and that's nice and easy too, but I personally find I can usually eyeball it pretty close, or I almost always have a fat quarter handy. Now let's fold a 3/4 yard cut. And just like the 1/3 yard cut, I would fold anything between a half yard and a yard this way. But let's go ahead and do this 3/4 yard cut. So I've got it flat down on my work surface with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory fold and folding it down to meet the selvage. Now I'm going to fold the selvage up to meet this fold we just made. Now I'm going to fold it in half. And now I want to fold this approximately in 1/3. So I'm going to grab a fat quarter just to help me make this a little bit easier. I'm going to fold that side in and fold that side. So now I'm pretty darn close to the size of my fat quarter. Now let's fold a fat 1/8. So I've got my fat 1/8 right sides down on my cutting mat with the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top raw edge and bringing it down to meet the selvage. I'm going to take that selvage and fold it up to meet this fold we just made. And now I can fold it in half across once. This method doesn't work super well for folding 1/8 of a yard cuts, but let's fold one anyways. So I've got an 1/8 of a yard cut on my work surface. I've got the selvage closest to me. I'm going to start by taking this top factory fold and bringing it down to meet the selvage. I'm going to fold the selvage up towards that fold we just made. And now we've already gotten to the size of all of our other pieces. So it is now the size of our fat quarter. The only downside is we still have this raw edge here. So you could stick this right in your stash like this, but it's not gonna be very neat. So something I'll often do is just do one more fold. And yeah, it is a little bit small, but I find that I would rather have that nice neat edge than have the raw edge showing. Personally, I don't have a lot of 1/8 of a yard cuts in my stash, so this works out pretty well. The last thing I want to show you is a little trick that I use when I have two fabric cuts that are of the same print. In this case, I have a fat 1/8 and a 1/2 yard. I'm going to show you how I fold them to combine them into one fold to store in my stash. So I'm going to start by folding the fat 1/8 and then we'll fold the 1/2 yard and put them together. I'm going to put the fat 1/8 right sides down on my work surface with there's no selvage here, so actually this is just one of the raw edges closest to me. I'm going to take this top raw edge and fold it down to meet the bottom one. Then I'm going to fold the raw edges up to meet this fold we just made. And now I'm going to fold this in half across. So we've got our fat 1/8 all folded. We can set that aside. So now let's bring in our 1/2 yard cut. I've got the selvage closest to me. I'm going to take this top factory fold and bring it down to meet the selvage. And I'm going to fold the selvage up to meet this fold we just made. Now I'm going to fold it in half across once. And before I make this last fold, I'm actually going to tuck my fat 1/8 right inside of my 1/2 yard. So now this is a little bit neater for my stash, and for me most importantly, it makes sure that this little fat 1/8 isn't going to get separated from this bigger piece. So that way if I need to just cut a couple strips or a couple squares, I can make sure and cut them out of this fat 1/8 before I cut into my 1/2 yard. Okay, and here's all of our cuts all folded to the same size. We've got our yard cut, our 3/4, 1/2 yard, 1/3 of a yard, fat quarter, 1/4 yard, fat 1/8, and 1/8 of a yard. So they all stack nice and neatly, and they're ready to go into your stash storage of choice. You could stick these in a drawer, on a shelf, in a storage bin, and it's going to be really easy to find what you need and store all these different size cuts in the same place.